The twin suns of Arvalis cast golden light across the sky palace of Ilaria, floated high above the pink clouds, supported by gravity, anchors, and ancient alien tech. Inside the palace, everything shimmered crystal walls, floating lights, and glowing servants. At the center of it all was the royal hall, where the noble bloodlines of the Ilari Empire discussed matters of state. Humans, once free explorers of space, were now seen as a servant species. They cleaned the halls, fixed machines, and translated languages. Most aliens thought humans were useful, but nothing more, except one. Princess Virelia of House Yushari was different. Known for her quiet power and mysterious beauty, she often asked strange questions, read ancient Earth texts, and sometimes even spoke directly to her human staff, something no other royal ever did. And that's where Elias Ward came in. Elias was not just any servant. He was clever, observant, and stubborn in a way that only humans could be. He'd worked in the palace for 6 years as a translator and tech maintainer. Virelia noticed him early on, impressed by his quick answers and honest eyes. Slowly, she began requesting him more often to explain human books, to fix strange machines, or just to talk. One afternoon in the Garden of Echoes, everything changed. Virelia sat under a star-blossom tree. Its petals shimmered silver, whispering songs as the wind passed. Elias stood beside her, holding a datapad. He was explaining an old Terran story, one about love, war, and marriage. Virelia tilted her head. So, in human tradition, a man simply asks for a woman's hand in marriage? No family council? No tests of bloodline? Elias smiled. Sometimes we ask the family for permission, but mostly yes. If two people love each other, they just ... choose each other. She laughed softly. Strange creatures, you humans. What if the woman is royalty? He raised an eyebrow. Then the man better have courage. She stared at him. Something unspoken passed between them. For a moment, the garden fell quiet. Then, Elias did something that would shake the stars. He dropped to one knee. Virelia's violet eyes widened. Princess Virelia of House Yushari said clearly, his voice steady, I know I am a servant in your world. I know what I ask is impossible, but I have to ask anyway. Will you marry me? Silence. Even the trees stopped singing, then dashed laughter. Not mocking, but surprised, musical, and full of something more. So, she said with a slow smile, standing tall and proud, you want me as your wife? The royal guards gasped. A few nobles nearby dropped their crystal glasses. One older alien fainted. Elias didn't move. Yes, Virelia looked around. Dozens of eyes were watching now. She could feel their shock, their rage, their curiosity. But she didn't care. She turned back to Elias. Very well, she said. By the ancient laws of Ilari royalty, any suitor may challenge for a royal hand if they complete the trials of bond, the guards whispered. That law hadn't been used in over 900 years. I accept your proposal. Human, she continued. If you survive the trials. Elias stood slowly, heart pounding. What are the trials? She stepped closer, her voice soft but powerful. 3 tests. One of mind, one of spirit, and one of truth. No human has ever attempted them. Most Ilari fail, not most humans. She smiled again. No, you're not. Now the news spread like wildfire. A human servant proposed to a royal, and she accepted the challenge? The empire roared with debate. Some nobles called it a joke. Others demanded Elias be executed for disrespect. But the law was clear. Virelia had spoken in public, in front of witnesses. The trials must begin. On the night before the first trial, Elias stood alone in his small chamber. He held a holomage of earth blue, scarred but beautiful. He hadn't seen home in 10 years. The Empire had taken that from him. But now maybe, just maybe, could change everything. Virelia visited him that night. You could still run, she said, her tone unreadable. I won't. You might die. I'd rather die trying than live crawling. She looked at him, really looked, You humans are reckless. You Alari are scared of change. That made her laugh again. Not many dared speak to her like that. Maybe that's why she liked him. The first trial was held in the Chamber of Minds. It was a massive hall, filled with floating crystals, glowing blue fire, and watchers from across the Empire. The trial would be a psionic duel, battle of thoughts, memories, and willpower. The Alari were masters of Minecraft. Humans had no such gifts. But Elias had something better. As he stepped into the circle, the crowd whispered, "A human." In the psionic ring, madness. Across from him stood his opponent, Lord Arinth, a noble born with 7 thought threads and trained in mental combat since birth. "Let us end this quickly," the noble sneered. The crystals lit up. The duel began. Arinth struck first images of fire, storms, fear. He tried to force Elias to relive his worst memories. Earth burning, families crying, chains and collars. Elias gritted his teeth. He didn't push back with psionics. He had none. He pushed back with logic. "You fear change?" he said aloud. "You fear humans because you see yourselves in us." The mental storm paused. "What? You built this empire on control, but you can't control what you don't understand. You've never understood us." The crowd went silent, then Elias did. Something no one expected. He opened his mind, not in the Alari way, but by speaking his truth out loud to everyone. "I don't want power. I don't want revenge. I want respect. Kaya, I want to stand beside her as her equal." Crystals around him glowed, something never seen before. Virelia, watching from her throne, leaned forward. The judge declared, "Trial 1. Complete." Gasps. Cheers, shouts, rage. The human had passed the first trial without powers, without tricks, only with truth. That night, the palace buzzed with confusion and fear. Elias sat alone in the garden again, watching the stars. Virelia approached quietly. "You?" "Surprised them. I meant what I said. I know." They stood side by side, silent for a while. Then she said, "The next trial will be harder." "I expected nothing less." She looked at him. "Do you love me?" He met her eyes. "I don't know yet. But I know I could." She didn't smile this time. Instead, she said something unexpected. "Then prove it. Not to me, to them." Now she walked away. The Sky Palace was no longer calm. After the first trial, the Alari nobles were restless. Whispers filled the halls like cold wind. Some called Elias a clever insect. Others called him dangerous. But Princess Virelia said nothing. Listened. Waited. Elias had become more than just a servant. He had become a symbol. Some humans in the Empire heard what he did and began to hope. Others feared he would bring disaster. But Elias had no time for politics. The second trial was near, and this time he would have to face death. The trial of Spirit was not held in the palace. It took place far away, on a ruined moon called Veros 6. Long ago, it was a Ilri colony. Now it was abandoned. The trial would be simple, they said. Survive. Elias stood on the edge of a transport ship, looking down at the broken world below. Gray dust storms moved across jagged mountains. Black spires rose like claws. No life, no help, no mercy. The trial. Keeper, a tall Illyri with golden armor, spoke through the communicator. "You have 48 hours. Find the Heartstone of Veros. Survive the ghosts. Return alive, or don't return at all." The shuttle dropped him onto the surface. Dust exploded around him, and the ship left. Elias was alone. He walked for hours. The wind howled. His oxygen mask clicked softly with every breath. His suit was thick, but old. Not Alari Turkurth tech, patched together with parts from a dozen places. He followed an old map stored in his datapad. It showed the ruins of a temple deep inside the mountains. The Heartstone was said to rest there. But legends also said something else. Veros is cursed. The dead walk there. Elias didn't believe in ghosts, but he believed in traps. When night fell, the temperature dropped fast. Ice formed on his boots. built a small fire using earth-made gel fuel, and hid in a rock crevice. As he tried to sleep, he thought of Aurelia, her smile, her voice. The way she had looked at him after the first trial. Was she hoping he'd survive, or just watching to see what happened? He didn't know, but he wanted to find out. The next day, everything went wrong. He was climbing a narrow ridge when the rocks beneath him crumbled. He fell 10 meters, slammed into stone, and blacked out. When he woke up, his arm was bleeding. His suit was torn. Worse, his datapad was cracked. No map, no signal. He was lost. For hours he wandered. The wind carried strange sounds, voices, whispers, crying. Then he saw them. Figures in the dust. Tall, thin, glowing faint blue. Ilari ghosts. Not ghosts. Memories. The planet wasn't cursed. It was damaged. A psionic event had burned echoes of the past into the land. He walked through an old battlefield, seeing flashes of war. Ilari soldiers screaming, fire from the sky, explosions, and humans, not as slaves but as soldiers, fighting beside Ilari. What? Elias froze. That wasn't in the Empire's history. Deeper into the ruins, Elias found the temple. Its walls were cracked, but still standing. Strange carvings glowed on the doors, symbols of unity. A human hand and an Ilori hand, reaching for the same light. Inside, air was still. He stepped into a wide hall with broken pillars and dust everywhere. In the center was a crystal heart, the Heartstone, but it wasn't alone. A massive machine stood behind it, ancient Ilari war tech, still active. Sensors turned toward Elias. It spoke, identity unknown, intruder, target, human. The ground shook as it came to life. Elias ran behind a pillar as laser beams scorched the floor. His gun in Old Earth sidearm was no match. He needed a plan. He looked around. The temple had power. That meant a control panel had to exist. While the machine fired again, Ilias dashed to a side wall and found a cracked control terminal. He plugged in a wire from his wrist computer. Come on, he whispered. The screen flickered, whispered. Ilari. Cody didn't understand it, but he understood patterns, lines of numbers, timing signals, power surges. He rerouted energy back into the machine's legs. It froze, then exploded from the inside, the air filled with smoke. Elias fell to his knees. He had done it. He approached the Heartstone and placed his hand on it. A light moved through him, not burning, not painful, warm, like a memory. Visions filled his mind. Ilari and humans working together, fighting together, falling together. The truth, Earth had once been allied with the Empire until something tore them apart, and the Empire erased it from history. His breath caught in his chest. Why? Elias returned to the surface with the Heartstone in his arms. Shuttle arrived to take him back. The trial keeper said nothing but stared at him like he was something new. Something dangerous? Back in the Sky Palace? The nobles waited. Varelius stood at the top of the stairs, silent. Elias stepped forward and placed the Heartstone on the floor before them. Trial to complete, the judge said. There was no applause, only stunned silence. Then a voice called out, "This is a trick." Tall Illyri noble stepped forward, Lord Krellin, known for his hatred of humans. No human could have passed the trial of spirit. He cheated. Elias looked him in the eye. I didn't cheat, but I found something. Something your empire buried. Krellin's eyes narrowed. Lies. Elias didn't back down. Why was Earth erased from your history? Why did the Ilari betray their allies? Gasps, shouts. Guards stepped forward. Varelia raised her hand. Enough, Rhea said. All fell silent. She looked at Elias, her face calm but intense. What did you see? Elias answered carefully. The truth that humans and Illyri once stood together, but someone chose to change that. Varelia didn't deny it. Instead, she looked at the nobles. He has passed 2 trials. Yes. He has risked death and brought back a piece of our past. Whether we like it or not, he stands here because he earned it." She turned to Elias. "The final trial awaits. And it will not be easy." That night, Elias sat in the garden again. His body ached, his arms still bled, but his mind burned with questions. Virelia came to him, quiet as the wind. "You should rest." "I can't. Not yet." She sat beside him. "You saw something on Veros, didn't you?" "Yes. You know more than you say." He looked at her. "Why didn't you stop me?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Because I wanted to see if it was true. What they did to Earth, to your people. And because I wanted to see what kind of man you really are." She smiled, just a little. "You're not just a man. You're a storm." They sat in silence again. Finally, Elias asked, "Do you believe in what we saw?" She nodded. "But belief is not enough. I must decide whether to protect the past or build something new." Elias reached for her hand. "Then let's build it together." She didn't pull away, but she didn't answer yet, far above the palace. Hidden among the stars, a signal pulsed across the black. On a secret Terran ship, orbiting just outside sensor range, a voice spoke. "Phase 2 complete. The human is alive, and the Empire is starting to listen." Earth had not forgotten, and now ... neither would the stars. The palace was burning with whispers. Elias Ward, once just a human servant, had survived 2 royal trials. He had walked through psionic fire and stood against ancient machines. Now, only one trial remained, the trial of truth. No one knew exactly what it meant. The old laws said only this: let the suitor be known fully, and let the truth decide if he is worthy. But truth was dangerous in the Illyri Empire, and Elias had already seen too much. The day before the trial, the Empress herself returned. She was Virelia's mother, impressed Kareth, ruler of 1,000 worlds. Her ship, the Starspine, entered orbit like a blade of light. Every noble bowed. Every servant hid. Elias stood still. In the throne hall, the Empress's presence was like cold thunder. Tall, silver-skinned, with sharp violet eyes. She walked like a queen who had crushed rebellion before breakfast. She looked at Elias with disgust. "This is the human you wish to marry?" Virelia stood firm. "He has earned his place. He is dirt in royal robes." "He is a mirror," Virelia replied, "and the nobles are afraid of what they see." Long silence followed. Then the Empress said, "Let him take the final trial. But if he fails, he dies, and Earth dies with him." That night, Elias sat in his chamber, reading the notes he had taken from the Heartstone. Stories of lost battles, secret alliances, and betrayal. The Illyri had wiped Earth from history after a political war-fearing human, independence and emotion. But one part of the notes kept pulling at him, a name, Project Etherlock. He didn't know what it meant, but something about it felt familiar. His thoughts were broken by a soft knock. Virelia entered, wearing a dark cloak. She didn't speak at first, just looked at him, eyes full of emotion. "Tomorrow," she said finally, "you will stand in the chamber of flame. I'm ready." "No, you're not," she whispered. He blinked. "What? This trial? It doesn't test knowledge or survival. It tests your soul. It will show you your deepest memories, your darkest truths, and it won't just show them to you. It will show them to everyone." Elias swallowed. "Then, let them see." Virelia stepped closer. "What if they see something you can't explain? Something dangerous? I won't hide. You may lose me." He paused. "Then you never truly belonged to me." Silence fell between them. Then, she reached out and touched his face. "You're the first man in my life who dared to see me not as a prize, but as a person," she said. "That is what makes you dangerous." And she kissed him. The next morning, the Chamber of Flame opened. It was a sacred place, older than the Empire itself. The room was made of red crystal, with a flame burning in the center. No heat only. Light, it was said, to burn lies. Elias stood in the middle, surrounded by nobles, scholars, and the Empress. Virelia stood nearby, her face unreadable. The judge spoke. Elias Ward. By order of ancient law, you now face the trial of truth. Step into the flame. Elias stepped forward. The flame rose and surrounded him in light, and the memories began. He saw Earth, a younger version of himself, running through the streets of New Seattle as alien ships fired from above. The day the Empire came, the day the Resistance fell, he saw himself as a boy, hiding in the ruins, watching his father get taken, his mother crying. He had sworn to never be weak again. The audience gasped as the images appeared in the air above them. Then they changed. Now, Elias stood with rebel fighters, older now, fighting Ilari patrols, planting bombs, causing chaos. Varelia looked shocked. Elias had never told her this. The flame whispered, "Speak your truth," he breathed deeply. "I fought your empire. Hated it for what it did to my people, for what it took from my family. I believed all Ilari were monsters." More gasps, then a different image. Elias, art, captured by the Empire, tortured, questioned. Then dash strangely, dash released. The room went cold, the Empress narrowed. Her eyes, the flame burned brighter, and a final memory rose one that Elias didn't recognize. He was younger, strapped to a machine, glowing blue circle on his chest. Scientists around him, project name flashing on a screen, Project Etherlock. The crowd screamed. The Empress stood. Stop this trial. It was too late. Elias saw the truth. He had not been just a servant, he had been engineered, not by Earth, by the Ilari. Long ago, before the war, the Ilari had begun secret tests on human children, to see if human minds could handle psionic energy. Elias had been one of the few survivors. They had erased his memory, planted him back on Earth, watched him grow. He was not an accident. He was a weapon they had forgotten, and now he remembered everything. The flame died. Elias collapsed to his knees. Panting, no one spoke. Varelia walked forward slowly. She looked at him, truly looked. "Is it true?" "Yes," he said, shaking. "I didn't know, but now I do. You're a weapon. I was, and now I'm just me." The Empress raised her voice. "This is over. The trials are void. The human is a threat." Varelia turned. "No," he passed. "What?" "The trial asked for truth. He gave it. And now we know who the real monsters were," the nobles argued. Some shouted. Others whispered. But one thing was clear. The Empire's secrets were no longer safe. Later, in the quiet of the Garden of Echoes, Elias sat on a bench, shaking. Varelia joined him. "So," she said softly, "you're not just a human. You're something more. I didn't ask for this. I know. Do you still believe in me?" She touched his hand. "I believe in the man who knelt in my garden, not the one in the lab." He looked at her. "What happens now?" "I don't know. But if you still want me, if you still want to stand beside me, I do." She smiled, then let them come. High above the stars, in a secret Ilari station, alarms flashed. A scientist watched the flame trials broadcast. With shaking hands, "Subject Etherlock has awakened," she whispered. "Do we activate the countermeasure?" asked a shadow behind her. She hesitated, then said, "No, let's see what he does next." And far below, in the heart of the palace, Elias stood with Varelia's hand in hers. He had passed the trials. He had told the truth now. He had to face the future, and the Empire would never be the same again. The Empire was silent, but only for a moment. After the trial of truth, the Ilari court was shaken. Elias Ward had not only passed all 3 royal trials, but he had also revealed a secret the Empire had buried for decades, that he had been made, engineered, used by them. Now he stood beside Princess Varelia, not as a servant, not as a suitor, but as a threat to everything they believed in, and some wanted him dead. The next morning, the palace gates remained closed. The Empress had disappeared. Into her war chamber. Guards were doubled. Servants whispered in corners. Some nobles fled to off-world estates. Others stayed to plot. Elias walked the stone halls with quiet footsteps. Every eye followed him, some with fear, some with hatred, and a few. He entered the garden where Virilia waited. She looked up as he approached. Her face was calm, but her eyes held fire. "They're preparing something," she said. "I know. They want to strip me of my title. For protecting you." Elias clenched his fists. "They can try." She gave him a sad smile. "No, Elias. This is bigger than us now. You've shaken the Empire's core. You've shown them the truth, but they will not bow. They will bite." He looked at her, then let them come. But she shook her head. "We must act first." That night, the couple met in secret with a group of Illyri nobles and soldiers who still had honor. They gathered in a hidden chamber beneath the palace. Holograms flickered, showing star maps and secret messages from across the Empire. A rebel noble named Telenvar stood and spoke. "Word has spread. On border worlds, humans are rising up. Some Illyri are joining them. Your truth sparked something. We thought long dead." Another, a warrior named Surreal, added. "But the Empress is preparing to crush them, what she's calling the Royal Fleet. Within days, she'll strike every human settlement across 6 systems." Elias stepped forward. "Then we strike first." The rebels looked at each other. Virilia placed her hand on the table. "We take the Crown City," gasps. Someone whispered, "Treason." "No," she said, "justice. I am the rightful heir, and I choose truth over lies." Tel nodded slowly. "Then we stand with you, princess, and you, human." Elias smiled grimly. "And then let's take our empire back." The battle began the next morning. Virilia led the charge. She wore light armor, made from sky-forged silver. Her hair was tied back like a warrior queen. Elias stood beside her, dressed in dark rebel gear, blaster at his hip. A small force of loyalists followed the Malari nobles, human engineers, former guards, just over 200. They attacked at dawn. The outer gates fell fast. Inside palace, guards resisted. Energy blasts lit up the golden halls. Shields flared. Smoke filled the air. Elias fought like fire. He moved fast, using both tech and instinct. But there was something more inside him now. Ever since the chamber of flame, he felt different. His mind was sharper, his reflexes faster. Once he deflected a plasma bolt before it fired. Was it the Etherlock project? Or something deeper? He didn't know yet. At the heart of the palace, they reached the Crown Hall High. Wide room with stained glass windows and ancient thrones of crystal. The Empress stood. Waiting, she wore black armor lined with violet flame. Her eyes burned like dying stars. "You bring war to your own house?" she said to Virilia. "I bring justice," the princess replied. The Empress looked at Elias. "You were supposed to be erased." Elias stepped forward. "I was supposed to be many things, but now I choose for myself." She raised her hand, and the floor shook. A group of hidden soldiers stepped from the shadows, black-clad. Warriors with glowing blue eyes. The Ether Guard, Illyri. Soldiers fused with psionic tech, mind-linked. Deadly. The rebels hesitated. Then the Empress gave the order. "Kill them all." The hall exploded into chaos. Elias rushed forward, ducking under a blade. Fired his blaster, hitting one guard in the chest, but it didn't fall. They're shielded. Rilia activated her Blada twin saber of red lightning. "Slice through 2 attackers. Aim for the back node," she yelled. Elias nodded. He moved through the battle like lightning. One guard came at him from behind, but Elias felt it. He spun, grabbed the guard's own weapon, and knocked it out cold. The ether energy in his blood was waking up. He didn't just fight. He knew where the enemy would strike. Where to move. What to do, but the Empress wasn't done. She walked through the battle untouched. She reached the throne, raised her hand, and activated the crown device. A bright pulse shot through the hall. The rebels screamed. Some collapsed. Virilia clutched her head. Elias staggered. "What is that?" "A control wave," she said. "She's trying to take control of your mind." The Empress smiled. "You were built by us. You belong to us." Elias dropped to one knee, head pounding. The world turned white. Voices screamed in his skull, but then he heard another voice. Virelia. Fight it. Elias. You are not theirs. He looked at her, and he remembered. The streets of Earth. The resistance. His promise. I will never be a slave again. He stood. The light around him broke. The control wave shattered like glass. Elias raised his hand. The air around him pulsed. The Empress stepped back. What are you? He looked at her, eyes glowing faint blue. Free. With a shout, Elias released a wave of energy, not an attack, but a pulse of memory and truth. It washed over the room, and every Illyri present saw. The experiments, the betrayals, the lies. Some guards dropped their weapons. Others fell to their knees. Virelia walked up to her mother. The Empress tried to speak, but her voice trembled. You would choose him? A human weapon? No, Virelia said. I choose peace. I choose truth. And I choose love. She deactivated her saber. Elias took her hand, and together they turned to the throne. By nightfall, the battle was over. The Empress was taken into custody alive, but silent. The Ether Guard was deactivated. The rebels controlled the palace, and news of their victory spread across the empire like a solar wind. On Earth, people lit fires of hope. On the colonies, humans and Illyri began to speak not with hate, but with wonder, and in the heart of the crown city, Elias stood before a crowd. Beside the woman he loved, Virelia raised her voice. This is not the end. This is a beginning. For too long, we lived by fear and control. Now we will rise with truth. In unity. No more slaves. No more lies. Elias stepped forward. I was born on a broken planet. I was raised by pain. But I stand here now, not as a weapon, not as a servant, but as a human being. Cheers rose, and Virelia looked at him with a smile only he knew. Later that night, in the quiet of the garden, Elias turned to her. So, now that I'm not just your servant, she raised an eyebrow. What are you saying? He knelt down, holding a small ring made of star silver. Princess Virelia.
Will you marry?
Me, she laughed softly, then smiled. So, you want me as your wife? She teased, and she took the ring. The palace had changed. The banners of war were gone. The blood was cleaned. The golden halls of the Illyri crown city were filled with light, music, and quiet hope. Elias Ward stood on a balcony, looking over the great city below. Ships flew in. Peaceful formation. Statues were being removed. Statues of conquerors, of tyrants. New ones were being planned. Of unity, of truth, freedom. He never thought he would see this day. He never thought Earth and the Empire would stand side by side. But now, it was real. Behind him, the doors opened. Princess Virelia walked in, wearing a silver gown stitched with star thread. Her long white hair was braided back, and her eyes sharp and kind met his. You're not dressed? She said, smirking. Elias turned. I don't know what to wear when marrying a galactic princess. She raised an eyebrow. You fought an army, exposed the Empire's lies, and survived the ether trials. I think you'll survive wearing a collar, he chuckled and held out. His hand, she took it. Their wedding would begin in 1 hour, and the galaxy was watching. The ceremony was held in the rebuilt Garden of Flame, where once fire burned to reveal truth, now flowers bloomed under a blue-shielded sky. Illyri nobles and Earth delegates sat side by side. Humans and aliens stood without fear. Former rebels, scholars, and soldiers watched as something once impossible unfolded. Telvar, now High Advisor, stepped forward by the ancient laws. Of the Illyri and the free will of Earth, he said, we unite 2 hearts to lead 1 future. Elias and Virelia faced each other. He smiled nervously. Still time to change your mind? She smirked. Only if you trip while saying your vows. He didn't, and she didn't either. They kissed under a sky filled with stars and hope. The people cheered, and across the galaxy. The broadcast reached 1 billion screens. The war was over. The rebuilding had begun in the weeks that followed. Elias and Virelia ruled together not as king and queen, but as leaders of a new council called the United Worlds Assembly. For the first time in history, humans had a voice equal to the Illyri. Ilios worked closely with Earth's scientists, colony engineers, and freedom fighters. He pushed for education, open travel, and the release of all prisoners taken during the Empire's long rule. Virelia focused on healing her people, especially the young Illyri raised on fear and false pride. She opened the Empire's vaults, showing the truth of the past, the failed experiments, the buried rebellions, the lives lost to greed. Together they faced resistance. Old noble houses tried to block change. Secret enemies sent spies. Assassination attempts came in shadows, but Elias had learned to see danger before it struck, and Virelia had learned to trust more than just her. Royal instinct, she trusted people. Not all were ready, but enough were. The galaxy was turning one. Evening, after a long day in council, Elias returned to the royal chamber. He took off his jacket, stretched, and poured a cup of synth tea. As he sat on the edge of the bed, he opened a message tablet from Earth. It was a video. A young girl stood in a sunny field, holding a drawing. It showed Elias holding a flag with Virelia beside him. Above them, stars. Behind them, a crowd of humans and Illyri. The girl said, "Thank you for making space safe again." Elias smiled, and for the first time in years, felt peace. Then Virelia walked in, tired but smiling. "Another message?" she asked. He nodded. "From Earth, they've invited us to the Unity Festival next month. Should we go?" He stood and walked to her. "Yes," he said. "We should go home." 3 months later, Elias and Virelia landed in New Seattle, on the very ground where the Illyri first invaded Earth 20 years ago. Now, it was a city of light. Humans and aliens danced together in the streets. Flags of peace flew on every tower. No soldiers. No fear, just laughter. They walked among the crowd like anyone else, no guards, no titles. Children ran past them with glowing balloons. An old woman gave them flowers. A young man saluted Elias not with fear, but with respect. That night, on the festival stage, Virelia spoke. "My people once came to this planet with fire and silence. But you answered with music and with courage. We forgot what it meant to feel, you reminded us." Then Elias took the mic. "I was a servant, a fighter, a project. I was built by fear. But now I choose love. And I choose peace." And the whole city sang. Later, lying together under Earth's real stars, not a sky dome or a space roof, Virelia looked at Elias. "You know," she whispered, "we'll still face trials. I know. Old powers will rise. Some humans will still hate Illyri. True. We'll be tested again." He turned to her and smiled. "But we'll face it together," she nodded. "Husband and wife, warrior and princess, human and alien." He pulled her close and whispered, "We will rebuild the stars." Years passed, the United Worlds grew. New colonies were born under peaceful skies. Technology shared, not stolen. Borders opened. The Etherlock program was shut down forever, and all its subjects, those who had survived, were freed. Some chose quiet lives. Some, like Elias, chose to lead. Virelia became known as the Starborn Queen. Elias was called the Lightwalker. Together, they weren't perfect. They argued. They failed. They learned, but they never gave up. Not on each other. Not on the galaxy. One day, a young girl with silver hair and soft brown eyes, Lyra Ward, daughter of the Queen and the humans, stood at the edge of a space academy. She looked up at the stars. Behind her, Elias and Virelia stood, proud. "Where will you go first?" Elias asked. Lyra smiled, to the edge of the known map. "Why?" "Because I want to find what comes next." Virelia touched her shoulder. "Then, go, and remember where you came from." Lyra nodded, and her ship rose into the sky, carrying the blood of 2 worlds and the hope of all others. In the end, the stars remembered Elias Ward. Not because he fought, not because he was created, but because he chose something greater. He chose to love the very people who once ruled over him. He chose truth when it could have destroyed him. He chose peace when war would have been easier. And in doing so, he changed everything forever.